Hey guys, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, I'm glad you are all here. I want to say thank you to all the channel members. Thank you all so much. I appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you for any of you guys who come in to check out the knife and EDC content. I appreciate you taking the time. Most people who check out the content aren't subscribed to the channel. I'd love to earn your subscription so you guys would be notified when I release new content, and it also really help me out if you hit that subscribe button and that bell notification icon. I would really appreciate it. So today I want to talk about TRM, and I wanted to go through my TRM collection, talk about them as a company, the latest knife that I picked up from them, revisit some of the ones that were my first TRMs, and I'm going to kind of start this and go through the order of which I acquired these knives. So the first TRM that I picked up was this Neutron. This Neutron, I traded a knife and some cash with Brother Mateo. It had red micarta scales. I have put so many different scales on this Neutron that is super, super thin and slicey. A perfect mid-sized knife, just to give you an idea. And we won't do this to all of them. Maybe we will. But that's it next to a bug out. Very close to the same size as a bug out, but thinner. And it came with micarta scales, flat micarta scales. I put Mexican blanket micarta on it, G10. I've got some tie-dyed scales for it. And then I picked up the titanium scales that cost almost as much as the knife, a little bit less. But the titanium scales, once they went on the titanium liners, the way they're designed, the way they integrate with the knife flawlessly, the way that you only have to take off those two screws, that one screw and those clip screws to remove those scales, make it just a really elegant knife. So once I put the titanium scales on, they didn't come back off, right? Because they're just that good. They're that enjoyable. But I've got a lot of different scale packs. So I've given a lot away because, again, there are a lot of people that have TRMs. I kept the tie-dye ones. But these guys, just to show you, let me get a T6 real quick. I think that's a T6. I think those got mixed up. So basically, you just remove two screws, the two body screws. Behind this titanium scale, or any scale that you've got on, you've got a titanium liner. So to take this apart, you've got a few more screws to go. But you put G10 or you put micarta on it, it's a totally different knife, much more, like you say, low-key. But these titanium scales, once I've put them on, the few knives that have them, they don't come off. They're just perfect. They make the knife feel great, give it a little extra heft, but not at all make it heavy or clunky because it's still so thin. This particular Neutron is 20 CV for the blade steel and titanium liners, titanium clip, and now titanium scales. And as I showed you guys earlier, it's a mid-sized knife, about the size of a Benchmade bug out, a little bit shorter. These guys operate on washers. So again, you've got a very thin package, very thin blade stock. You've got these little bands that they sell if you want to make the studs a little stickier. But this Neutron is a fantastic knife, absolutely one of my favorites. Great ergos, great blade geometry, a great slicer, and a fantastic EDC knife. So the next knife I bought was its big brother. And this knife came with purple G10 scales. It also went through probably 4 or 5 different scale sets because they're so available. This is the TRM Adam, the full-size brother of the TRM Neutron. So just to give you an idea, we'll take our same bug out, and you will see that this is going to be closer to our pair of 2 size. It's the same thickness, the same blade stock, the same thin handle, titanium frame, the absolute bigger mirror brother of the Neutron. I love this knife. Usually I prefer a smaller knife like, you know, the Neutron, but the Adam, even though it's longer, it carries like a champ. Very, very thin. If I wanted it lighter, I could put micarta or G10 scales on it. The titanium will never come off. And it is also 20 CV blade steel, made in America by Three Rivers Manufacturing. Beautifully milled titanium scales, titanium liners, liner lock, just an absolute banger. So the second TRM that I picked up in my collection, and then the scales came later down the road, was the TRM Adam, which is the Neutron's big brother. Then I picked up the smallest TRM that I'd seen, and this is the little locking TRM Nerd. It is also a titanium knife. I have a hard time flicking this one because it's got the little indentation there, but this is a little mini knife. I don't have titanium scales for this particular one, but it is, and gives you a good example of that contoured micarta handle, titanium liners, 20 CV blade steel, absolutely slicey. The blade style is a little different than the Neutron and the Adam. This is more of a, what I consider a shadow style blade. It's a taller grind, a little bit thicker, not thicker, but taller. And the ergos on this small little knife are absolutely fantastic. The Nerd was one that I was kind of late to the game on. It wasn't one that was attracting me that much. But when I got this, I really fell in love with it. And what I really like about it, and TRM in general, is they listen to their fans. They listen to their community. So a lot of people were doing mods on this Nerd because it was an easy mod to do. Whoops. Sorry about that, guys. That was a little crash bang boom over there. But they were taking and modding out this little hole here, this little oval hole. They would just take it, drill it out, finish it out, and then this knife, even though it's on washers, would become very flickable. Because I could almost flick it just off the lid, right? So that was something that was kind of cool. I like it because you can thumb roll it. I like it because it's a great fifth pocket knife. It was my third TRM and really kind of completed the collection that I thought I was going to have at the time. But then I went to the Nashville Knife Show in 2022 and bumped into TRM and was able to acquire kind of my TRM Grail, which at the time was a TRM Shadow. This has got the river lock, which is their version of the bar lock, which I can tell you they did a fantastic job with it. It does use axis springs. It does have these little nice milled bar type, I guess you'd call them releases or pulls. I don't know what you'd call that. The bar. The knife is G10 titanium scales, 20 CV blade. The blade looks, when I said a shadowy blade, to me it looks very similar to the small Nerd blade. And what I didn't do is show you the Nerd next to the bug out. So you can see that's a much smaller knife. But the Shadow is probably my favorite. It is, for an EDC knife, you can use it a little bit more hard use. It's got that really tall flat grind blade, which is an absolute scalpel, a shaver. You've got a Slurpee saver. You've got super, super strong lockup, no blade play, no lag on closing the blade, perfectly centered. I like the G10. The ergonomics on this knife with the milling and the just absolute fantastic feel in hand make this just a winner of a knife. Again, 20 CV, TRM USA on the blade, the TRM logo here, the three rivers coming together. Really nice milling on both the pivot and on the bar lock. You've got several screws. Unfortunately, they do not sell titanium scales for the Shadow. They do make a titanium Shadow, however, and they have made this knife with micarta handles. I'm fine with the black G10. I think it's just a great knife. Has super fidgety fluid action, and again, is just a slicer's dream. Well then, lo and behold, I had my little nerd, and instead of saying, we don't want you to modify your nerd, TRM came out with the Holy Nerd. So the Holy Nerd is the same form factor as the regular Nerd, 20 CV, same blade, same handle, but I didn't have anybody to mod mine. It has the blade hole. I love being able to flick this little fifth pocket carry knife. It is, just like all my other TRMs, a slicey beast. It's a cardboard nightmare. So, I mean, you can break down cardboard with this little guy. It's very ergonomical. And just a fantastic knife. The blade hole made all the difference in the world. They moved the little Three River logo up in front of it, so you still got that. Still TRM USA 20 CV. And we were approaching the Nashville Knife Show in 2023. And I'd been talking with Hillary, and I'd been talking with Marianne, and I said, if you have some titanium scales, I would like to grab some at Blade Show. And the guy I was going with, A to Z EDC, was in the position where he was going to grab a titanium Shadow, because they only sell those at Blade Show usually. So I was going to pick up scales for this little nerd, and there was a Facebook post that I saw about a week before Blade Show that said there were a couple of lonely titanium nerds in the garage sale, not in 20 CV, but in Magnacut. So I was in a predicament. I was going to be getting the scales anyway for just about $100 more, $150 more. I could get a Magnacut nerd. And so then I had my three knives with titanium scales, my Neutron, my Nerd, and my Adam. And then I had my 20 CV Nerd, and I had my OG Nerd, which was the first one. All of them have the exact same body shape and blade. This one has the titanium scales and the Magnacut. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the first Magnacut that TRM used, and it's very sharp. It's held an edge very well. Like I said, it is a absolute killer. And for cardboard, for anything that you're going to cut, a great fifth pocket knife. Very, I think, elegant. I think this knife next to the Neutron, next to the Adam, is just a perfect trifecta of carry. I mean, if you're looking for thin EDC knives, those three right there will definitely do it for you. And then, of course, the Shadow, which to me looks very much like the little nerd in design. If you look at it, it's kind of like a little native and a shaman, where they've kind of got a miniature version of a bigger knife. Well, then, lo and behold, I had the chance to get a knife that was discontinued. I learned that it was not the first knife TRM made, but it was an early one. It was one that was available quite often when I first started getting into TRMs, but I was not into non-locking knives. I came into a three-way trade with this little knife, which this is an OG slip joint. And you say, John, that's not a slip joint. You don't have a spring. It's probably a double detent. No, it's a titanium frame, 20 CV blade, and the titanium frame if you watch back here where those jimps are, you got springs on both sides cut into the titanium. So when it comes to half stop, spring goes flush, start closing it, spring depresses, closes all the way. Just give you a quick look. If you guys haven't seen my review video, just take the scales off this one side and show you guys that spring. But this is the Atlas. It's no longer in production. I was really lucky to acquire it. I'd kind of gotten into slip joints about the time that it was available in a trade. See, there's your spring, and it's the same on the other side. So it rolls to half stop and rolls to fully open. And all TRMs, guys, have the best blade geometry, fantastic heat treats. As you can tell, I'm not holding the knife like a knife, so this is cutter error where it's not slicing like the others, but just an absolute slicey little beast. Don't want to throw my screws away. But then, yeah, again, I've got some G10 scales that came with this as well, and they're so easy to change. I even reached out to TRM knowing that they were not making Atlases anymore, but to see if they had any scales that I could buy laying around the shop, and they don't. So these have come and gone, but you'll find them on the secondary market. And their first knife, which I can't think of the name of it now, but Hillary told me they also are sometimes available on the secondary. Maybe the Nomad was the first knife that they made, and it was a larger knife, but looked very similar to this knife. Kinda, not really. Kind of looked like a cross between this knife and another knife. But she says they can be had on the secondary from time to time on their Facebook group. They come up for about $300. But guys, that is my TRM collection. When I go to Blade Show on Saturday in June, if all things work out, they are coming out with a new knife you might have seen on their Instagram page. I will link it in the description, called the Bulldog. It's also on a Riverlock, a little bit smaller, cool knife. And I really look forward to hopefully checking one out. They've also got a little fixed blade that's really got my entrance peaked. I'd love to check that out at Blade Show as well. But guys, my TRM collection, my favorite USA manufacturer, because the knives fit my jam very well, the way I carry, and they are some of the kindest, most customer service focused, most charitable, most generous people, not just knife companies, I've met. I mean, they've done so much for different fundraisers we've done for not only Knives Live, but for other things that were less talked about, but were a lot of help. Guys, this is TRM Atlas, TRM Shadow, OG TRM Nerd, first 20CV Holy Nerd, Magnacut Holy Nerd with titanium scales. You've got the TRM Neutron 20CV titanium scales, and the Adam 20CV titanium scales and liners, of course, on all of them. But guys, thank you for watching the video. I hope you found it informative, educational, maybe entertaining. I appreciate you being here. All I ask is please look out for the guy or gal to your left. Please look out for the guy or gal to your right. Please go forward with love in your heart. Choose debate, not hate. And please, be up. Peace.